IoT has to be taken as a progressive steps. First of all, there should be a requirement by the business that there is a clear return on investment and improvement on the service and to the customers to embark towards the IoT. We should not get so much hanged on the technology itself that is the talk of the town, the Internet of Things or Internet of Everything, because that may mislead. And the CIOs should work closely with the CEOs to understand the business requirements, the pains, and this is the strategical decisions more than the technical or tactical decisions. So I think one of the important parts of the IoT is that you probably be difficult to start from the IoT itself if you do not have, for instance, built a cloud on the public or private. We ourselves in Gulf Air have a hybrid cloud, so it makes it easier to go towards IoT rather than starting from the scratch on the IoT. I will take this from my previous statement that the foundation for the IoT or the prerequisites probably is the establishment of the cloud. So people who have done, like us, some work on the cloud in the past few years must have addressed many security threats or requirements, because you need to, as part of the cloud, ensure that you have a secure environment, the secure transformation of the data. So when it comes to the IoT, you should have addressed majority of the security issues, because if you are just starting it and wants to address the threats, the vulnerabilities, then it will be lengthy and expensive journey to go through that. Although IoT has its own security requirements, but we will have to remember that the investment on the security cannot supersede the investment on the IoT itself, because as a total it's a value added to the business, but it's not a prerequisite for the business. So it has to make business sense, and it has to have clear benefits towards the growth of the revenue and customer satisfaction, and it's quicker transformation of the data between the machines. Security is progressive, not an implementation of certain measures. It has to work through different layers, and it is not a guard that it can stay outside. For instance, for us, when we had a private cloud, it was easier to set up many security measures because you did not have to interact with the outside world. But when you have a hybrid cloud, and nowadays you need to have that, because your cloud needs to talk to other service providers which are on the cloud. So there are certain elements that others implement, and there are rules and regulations that you put in place on your cloud. So that has to be a compromise and an API between those two that ensures that the transformation of data is done smoothly to and from the other machines on the clouds. But that has to be also, looked at not being a hindrance to the business or delaying the data transition, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting the data from machines to others at the earliest that is possible through the means that is available to you. Well, I think they start to taking that. There was, a study sometimes back that, over worldwide there will be a $50 billion expenditure on 1 year on the security, and that's a great amount of expenditure. And what is happening now with the major companies, it's not the tools or the appliances are not only handling securities, but handling other features of the business, such as bandwidth acceleration, processing, etc. So it's more than just a security, but looking at other parts of it and then integrated with the security. So it's becoming more part and parcel of it, rather than having separate devices sitting and acting as a security applications. Well, I mean, for airlines it's very important because you have the passengers' data, and you don't want your passengers' data to go in either leaked or go to their own hands or to the competitors. So that's very important. But I think what's another industry that is very conscious of that is the banking and financial sectors. They are very concern, not because of their requirements, but also because of some other legal institutions imposing the presence of data. You know, when your data is on the cloud, then you do not know where it is residing, whether it's in your country or is in other places, especially if it is a public cloud. So there is a big debate on that, and there's a concern on where the data is on the cloud for the financial sectors when it comes to that. So for them, the location of the data, the DRs, the security becomes more important, and some other standards like PCI DSS, which imposes certain network separations or the dual authentications on the service providers that are dealing with the credit card companies. Well, IoT and security, as I said, I noticed that it is much more difficult for companies who are just implementing IoT without having a right cloud for it that has not been implemented, or a big data, because, you know, as I said earlier, it's a progressive implementation. When we started, we implemented the private cloud, and then we went to big data, but then when it was a requirement to other cloud connectivity, we had to go to the hybrid, and so on, coming now to the IoT, which we have recently implemented. So the people who just implementing the IoT as a technology, I found it very difficult for them. They may be able to implement the technology, but they will find big challenges on the security, especially when it comes to the connectivity between the devices and the residing of the data, be a big data or the storage on the devices.